Found on May 30th, 1998. And I said, wow, that's really coincidental. The day after Orlando Anderson is killed, this gun shows up. I give it to the ATF agent.
Hackey, according to these court filings, worked as an undercover agent for the FBI and ATF helping the feds. Hackey says he first showed the handgun to his FBI handlers. It was a .40 Glock handgun that killed Tupac Shakur.
The gun matched on the murder of Tupac. It was a positive match on the casings.
Tupac's alleged murder weapon was claimed to have been found by Compton PD, buried in the backyard of a girlfriend to a Crip associate who was in Las Vegas on the night that Tupac was fatally wounded. Coincidentally, the weapon had been found the day after Orlando Anderson was murdered in Compton, who was seen being beaten down by Tupac along with an entourage of blood gang members being on the night that he was shot. There have been two stories about the murder weapon, with one coming from Orlando Anderson's uncle being Keefy D, who was a Southside Compton Crip shot caller, and a different alternate theory coming from an undercover FBI asset called Kevin Hackey. The same gun, which was claimed to be Tupac's murder weapon, had been destroyed by the ATF in 2013 after they claimed that it had no link to Tupac Shakur's murder, with Kevin Hackey's theory tying the agency into the weapon. In this video, we're going to take a look into both of the stories about the alleged murder weapon of Tupac Shakur.
This gun seems to have come from Orlando Anderson.
Confidential informants have identified this man, Orlando Anderson, as Tupac's killer.
Tupac Shakur, being at the height of his popularity in September of 1996, was forced into traveling to Las Vegas by the judicial system. Being signed to Death Row Records, his lawyer was David Kenner until the last 2 weeks of August 1996 when he fired him. Tupac had fired him after his family had pointed out that David Kenner was not only the criminal defense attorney for the label, but also the entertainment lawyer for the artists too, which was seen as a conflict of interest. Before Tupac had fired David Kenner as his lawyer, Kenner was involved in working with a Las Vegas business attorney by the name of George Kalisis to set up a charity fundraiser event in Las Vegas, which would be used for Tupac to serve community service to keep him out of jail. Tupac had broken the 3 strikes law in Los Angeles, which Kenner had circumvented by moving one of the cases to Las Vegas. A deal with the judge was made where Tupac's sentence would be lowered to community service, where he would have to perform at a benefit gig being at a club called Club 662 in Las Vegas. The benefit gig was being held for a Las Vegas Metro police officer called Patrick Barry. With the charity event being held at Club 662, the club was being invested into by Suge Knight, being the head of Death Row Records, who was seeking to get a permit for the club. Attorney George Kalisis had encouraged Suge Knight to invite celebrities to the event to help spread awareness about the charity event which was taking place. Mike Tyson was supposed to go to the event as he was performing in a boxing match on the same night, being at the MGM Grand, which Tupac and Suge Knight were also attending. With Club 662 holding a charity event for the Metro police officer, security measures were now changed by Death Row Records head of security Reggie Wright Jr. Reggie Wright Jr. was a former Compton cop who was the son to the head of Compton's gang division, being Reggie Wright Sr. On the day of the Vegas trip, Tupac's bodyguards such as Frank Alexander and Michael Moore, along with a host of others, had a meeting with Reggie Wright Jr. along with George Kalisis, where 24 bodyguards were told not to carry their weapons.
24 bodyguards that night were told not to carry weapons.
Reggie Wright Jr. has gone on to claim that this was a misunderstanding with the security, claiming that he told them not to carry their weapons while inside the club, due to the high-profile event which was taking place. Michael Moore refused to surrender his weapons, and Reggie Wright Jr. removed him from bodyguarding Tupac, where he then stayed at Club 662. Frank Alexander was now alone and unarmed while bodyguarding Tupac, and he also never had a security radio, as this was in the possession of Kevin Hackey. Kevin Hackey was a former Compton cop who was the police partner of Reggie Wright Jr. He was approached by the FBI and the ATF to become an undercover asset posing as a bodyguard while collecting information on the label. He had Frank Alexander's security radio but was assigned elsewhere on the day of the Vegas trip, meaning that Frank Alexander could no longer communicate with the rest of security. After Tupac had gambled in the casinos, Him and Suge Knight, along with an entourage of Blood gang members affiliated with Suge Knight, went to watch a Mike Tyson fight within the MGM Grand. While within the MGM Grand lobby, Tupac and an entourage of Blood gang members had encountered a Southside Compton Crip by the name of Orlando Anderson. Trayvon Lane, being a Blood gang member who was with Suge Knight on the night of the trip, had an incident with Orlando Anderson just prior to Las Vegas, being in the Lakewood Mall in California, where the Crips attempted to steal the death row chain from his neck. Puff Daddy, who was from the East Coast in New York, who had animosity with Suge Knight on the West Coast, was affiliated with the Southside Compton Crips and has been pointed in relation to this incident as he was tied into Orlando Anderson, with them not only sharing studio sessions together, but there also being a rumour on the streets of Compton that there was a $10,000 bounty on death row chains. Trayvon Lane, after seeing Orlando Anderson, pointed him out to the Bloods along with Tupac and Suge Knight, with Tupac running over first to attack him, followed by the Bloods. They then left the MGM Grand and changed clothes, and after 3 hours had passed, they then travelled to Club 662 so Tupac could perform as part of his community service. Tupac and Suge Knight travelled together in a BMW, while Frank Alexander travelled behind them, with Trayvon Lane being behind Frank Alexander. Kevin Hackey confirmed in an interview how the FBI were in a car behind the Blood gang members and had the BMW under surveillance.
Somebody who was working for the FBI, Kevin Hackey, said he had the documents to prove that the FBI had Tupac under surveillance when he was killed.
At around 11:15 PM, or stopped at a red light on the Las Vegas Strip, a white 4-door late model Cadillac pulled up alongside the BMW and carried out a drive-by, being with a Glock, shooting at them 13 times. Tupac was hit 4 times, severing a finger, also puncturing a lung, with him dying just short of a week later. Suge Knight received injuries to the head and chest as a result of the attack. We're now going to take a look into Keefe D's story as to what he claims took place, with him claiming that he supplied the murder weapon which the incident was carried out with.
You said the shots came from the back. Big Dre, Orlando. Who shot Tupac?
I gave it to Dre, and Dre was like, no. And Lane's like, you, Papa, dude. I left the car there and put the gun on the tire and left.
Keefe D was a Southside Compton Crip shot caller in the 1990s, who was also the uncle to Orlando Anderson. He was Puff Daddy's connection to gang security in Los Angeles, where Puffy would supply the Southside Compton Crips, being with tickets to their live events, to make sure that no LA gangs would run up on them while they were there. Keefe D featured as the key star witness of ex-LAPD detective Greg Kading's 2011 book called Murder Rap, which claimed the Southside Crips were offered $1 million by Puff Daddy to murder not only Tupac, but also Suge Knight. Greg Kading was tasked in countering any LAPD involvement in a similar murder being of rapper Biggie Smalls, which took place 6 months after Tupac's. Based on evidence given forward by LAPD detective Russell Paul, a civil lawsuit by Biggie Smalls' family was filed against the LAPD for over $500 million, which had implicated LAPD officers being in the murder of Biggie Smalls, claiming it to be tied in to death row security. Greg Kading was reassigned to the case, making the lawsuit disappear by claiming that a Blood gang member by the name of Poochie was actually the killer of Biggie. During the investigation, Keefe D was set up and was offered a proffer agreement where he was allowed to speak on any involvement he may have had in the case of Biggie, but instead he had told a story about the case of Tupac, as he and the Southside Crips were in Las Vegas during the time of the shooting. Keefe D had implicated Southside Crips Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, along with his own nephew Orlando Anderson, being in the murder of Tupac Shakur, claiming he was the person who gave the Glock to Orlando Anderson, which the shooting was carried out with. Keefe D has been caught lying about the murder weapon, as in his statement to Greg Kading, he claimed a New York associate of Puffy by the name of Zip had given him the Glock after getting it out of a trap door being within his Mercedes-Benz, whereas during his Vlad TV interview, he had claimed that they already had the weapon on them.
But you guys don't have any guns.
Who said that?
Well, it was in the book. Until Von Zip came in the picture.
I don't want to talk about that.
When being asked about the Zip connection after getting caught in a lie, he has claimed during other interviews that he had told Kading whatever he wanted to hear to be able to create a Puffy motive. Keefe D, along with the Southside Compton Crips, were at the MGM Grand lobby bar watching the Mike Tyson fight, when shortly after it finished, Orlando Anderson had returned to them to tell them that he had just been jumped by Tupac along with the Bloods. Keefe D claimed following this, a van load of Crips then drove to Club 662, expecting to see Tupac and Suge Knight there. Keefe D claimed after they waited a while and it took way too long for Suge Knight and Tupac to arrive, himself along with Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith and Orlando Anderson then got into a white Cadillac and went to a liquor store. Keefe D claims after they drove away from the liquor store, they then saw the BMW with Tupac hanging out the sunroof like he was in a parade. Keefe D claims they then spun a U-turn and rolled up on the BMW, and Keefe D claimed he gave the Glock to Orlando Anderson, who then carried out the drive-by. Keefe D has gone on to claim that he saw that the very first bullet which was fired hit Suge Knight in the head, whereas Suge Knight claimed that the bullet which hit him in the head came afterwards when he attempted to pull Tupac down to get him out the way.
When I put him down, bam, I get hit in the head.
Suge Knight has also claimed during a prison interview that Orlando Anderson was not the shooter.
The sad thing about it, Orlando wasn't even the shooter, you know? They said that, but that's not at all.
Orlando Anderson was murdered on May 29th, 1998, being in a shootout in Compton. The following day, Compton PD claimed to have found a 40 Glock being in the backyard of a girlfriend to a man called Corey Edwards, who was with the Southside Crips in Las Vegas during the time of the incident. The 2017 TV documentary Who Shot Biggie and Tupac claimed that the Glock was given to the ATF for ballistics testing, where it matched shell casings found at the Tupac scene.
Yeah, give it to the ATF agents. They say the gun match on the murder of Tupac was a positive match on the casings.
The ATF then destroyed the gun in 2013, claiming that it was not related to the crime.
Hackey, according to these court filings, worked as an undercover agent for the FBI and ATF helping the feds. An off-duty Santa Monica cop working security confiscated a .40 caliber Glock handgun similar to this. Hackey believes the murder weapon was the same gun.
Undercover FBI asset Kevin Hackey revealed an alternate theory of the murder weapon being to Fox News in 2007. Hackey, being the former police partner to the head of security Reggie Wright Jr., was approached by the FBI and the ATF, being in the 1990s, to go undercover as a bodyguard and collect information on the label. Tupac's former artist Muhtar Bill, also known as Napoleon, who was a member of the rap group The Outlaws, revealed on his podcast how Kevin Hackey was, according to what he witnessed firsthand, was allegedly selling guns to Tupac's rap group The Outlaws, along with supplying them with bulletproof vests, with what Napoleon believes was part of the undercover work to keep track of them.
There was a guy named Hackey. He was an undercover ATF. He was selling us guns so we could keep track of them. Yeah. And also he had a connection to bulletproof vests.
With Kevin Hackey being undercover for the ATF, it resembles what's called gun walking operations, which are carried out by the ATF, with a notable case being called Operation Fast and Furious. This operation uncovered that the ATF were supplying the Mexican cartels with automatic weapons, being in an operation against drug lord El Chapo, and it was later revealed that these weapons were then being traded by the cartels, turning up as far as the inner cities of Chicago, falling into the hands of the street gangs. The ATF gun walking operation allows illegal straw buyers to make purchases of firearms, with the hopes of tracing and tracking them to link them with criminal activity, being to then make arrests. Author Randall Sullivan's book Labyrinth had revealed how Kevin Hackey, while working undercover, had heard Suge Knight discussing an arms trafficking operation. A .40 caliber Glock, which was sold to Outlaws member Hussein Fatal, was confiscated by an off-duty Santa Monica police officer working security outside the House of Blues on July 4th, 1996. Hackey revealed on Fox News how the gun was then given to the ATF for ballistics testing. Hackey revealed at the time how the gun had come back as clean, and when he retrieved the Glock from his FBI handlers, they then cleared him to give it back to Death Row's head of security.
He first showed the handgun to his FBI handlers, and then turned it over to Reggie Wright Jr.
Kevin Hackey went on Fox News and claimed he believes this was the murder weapon being in the case of Tupac Shakur. Hackey later retracted his claims, and Reggie Wright Jr. went on Vlad TV claiming that Hackey was mistaken and it was not the same gun. With the confiscated Glock Hackey had mentioned, Reggie claimed this was actually thrown in the ocean in the Bahamas. In this video, we took a look into the case of the murder weapon of Tupac Shakur. It could be as simple as a Glock given from Keefe D to Orlando Anderson, this being if you believe Keefe D's claims. A further theory suggests that the weapon was used in an ATF gun-walking operation which was planted in Compton the day after the murder of Orlando Anderson, being to frame the Southside Compton Crips.
This fight was staged so the rival could later be blamed for Tupac's murder.
Let me know what your thoughts are on all this.